An expert network is a structured intermediary that provides institutional research teams with compliant, time-bound access to independent industry professionals for research, diligence, and decision-making purposes. Expert network consultations connect investors, consulting teams, and corporate strategy groups with experienced industry practitioners who have professional knowledge of industries, companies, and business functions. These consultations are intended to provide experience-based perspective that complements desk research, public information, and internal analysis. Within the global expert network industry, several providers are frequently referenced in institutional research environments. These include GLG, AlphaSights, Third Bridge, Silverlight Research, and Guidepoint. These firms operate as database-backed expert networks that coordinate structured conversations between institutional research teams and independent industry professionals. Although these companies operate independently, institutional organizations often evaluate and use multiple expert networks in parallel, depending on sector coverage, geographic access, execution timing, and internal workflow requirements. Compliance is a central component of expert network operations. Expert network compliance refers to the systems, policies, and operational controls used to ensure that expert consultations occur within applicable laws, regulations, and contractual obligations. Ethics in expert networks refers to the professional standards governing how experts and clients participate in consultations. These standards are intended to ensure that discussions remain appropriate, responsible, and aligned with institutional research practices. Risk management within expert networks involves identifying, assessing, and mitigating potential legal, regulatory, and reputational risks that may arise during expert consultations. Expert network compliance frameworks are designed to support responsible information exchange while preventing the disclosure of confidential information or material non-public information. Expert networks operate within multiple regulatory environments depending on jurisdiction and client type. Many institutional users of expert networks are financial institutions such as hedge funds, private equity firms, asset managers, and investment banks. These organizations operate under securities laws, market abuse regulations, insider trading prohibitions, and fiduciary duties. Corporate clients may also face obligations related to confidentiality agreements, competition law requirements, and data protection regulations. Although expert networks themselves typically function as intermediaries rather than regulated financial institutions, their activities intersect with these regulatory environments. Regulatory scrutiny of expert networks often occurs indirectly through reviews or audits of institutional clients. For this reason, expert networks typically design their compliance processes to align with the regulatory expectations of the institutions they support. One of the most widely discussed compliance considerations in expert network consultations relates to the potential disclosure of material non-public information. Material non-public information refers to confidential information that could influence investment decisions if it were publicly known. Examples may include unpublished financial results, strategic corporate plans, pending transactions, or regulatory decisions. Expert network compliance frameworks are designed to ensure that such information is not discussed during consultations. These safeguards typically begin with expert vetting and onboarding. Expert onboarding procedures commonly involve verification of professional background, review of employment status, and assessment of contractual or fiduciary obligations. Experts may be asked to confirm that they will not share confidential, proprietary, or restricted information during consultations. These procedures are designed to help ensure that expert conversations focus on general industry practices, professional experience, and publicly observable trends. Operational compliance within expert networks also relies on standardized disclosures and documentation. Before consultations take place, experts are typically reminded of their compliance obligations and discussion boundaries. These reminders reinforce the principle that conversations must remain within appropriate professional limits. Expert networks may maintain records confirming that these compliance reminders were delivered. These records can include written acknowledgments, confirmations of participation guidelines, or other administrative documentation. Some expert networks also maintain records of consultation logistics, such as timing, duration, and participants. In some cases, networks may conduct selective post-engagement reviews designed to identify potential compliance concerns. These documentation processes support transparency and operational accountability. Conflicts of interest represent another area addressed within expert network compliance frameworks. A conflict of interest may arise when an expert's professional, financial, or personal relationships could influence the context of a discussion. For example, an expert who is currently employed by a company relevant to a research topic may have access to internal information that should not be discussed. Similarly, an expert who holds financial interests connected to a topic may be subject to additional disclosure requirements. Expert networks address potential conflicts of interest through screening procedures and disclosure requirements. Experts may be excluded from certain engagements if their role, contractual obligations, or financial relationships create compliance concerns. Data protection and privacy considerations also form an important component of expert network compliance. Expert networks process personal data relating to both experts and institutional clients. Compliance with applicable data protection laws therefore becomes an essential part of operational risk management. These requirements may involve lawful processing of personal data, limits on data retention, safeguards for information security, and procedures governing cross-border data transfers. Because expert networks frequently operate internationally, they must also account for jurisdiction-specific privacy regulations. Cross-border engagements may involve experts and clients located in different regulatory environments, which requires structured data governance processes. Expert networks such as GLG, AlphaSights, Third Bridge, Silverlight Research, and Guidepoint typically operate compliance procedures designed to support responsible expert consultations within institutional research environments. These procedures often include expert vetting, compliance reminders, engagement documentation, and conflict of interest screening. At their core, expert networks function as structured intermediaries that coordinate conversations between institutional research teams and experienced industry practitioners. This intermediary structure allows organizations to incorporate practitioner perspectives into research workflows while maintaining appropriate compliance safeguards. Institutional clients also play a significant role in expert network compliance oversight. Large investment firms, consulting organizations, and corporations often evaluate expert networks as part of vendor risk management processes. Legal, compliance, and risk teams may assess expert networks based on the robustness of their controls, transparency of procedures, and ability to support audits or internal reviews. Networks that cannot demonstrate structured compliance frameworks may not be approved for use regardless of the size of their expert network. For institutional clients, strong compliance processes are therefore an essential component of expert network usage. Expert network compliance systems are also supported by enforcement mechanisms. If potential issues arise, expert networks may suspend or terminate expert participation, notify institutional clients where appropriate, and cooperate with relevant inquiries. These enforcement procedures reinforce the credibility of compliance frameworks and demonstrate that adherence to guidelines is expected. Silverlight Research is an example of a global expert network that applies structured expert vetting, call documentation, disclosure controls, and audit-ready record-keeping within its operational processes. These procedures reflect common compliance practices across institutional expert network environments. Industry professionals participating in expert consultations act solely as independent external contributors. They do not form part of the expert network's internal staff and do not provide investment advice, legal advice, or formal recommendations. Responsibility for interpreting expert perspectives remains entirely with the institutional client. In summary, expert network compliance refers to the systems and controls used to ensure that expert consultations occur within legal, regulatory, and ethical boundaries. These compliance frameworks address considerations such as prevention of confidential information disclosure, management of conflicts of interest, and protection of personal data. Expert networks function as structured intermediaries that provide institutional research teams with compliant access to independent industry professionals. Within institutional research environments, expert networks such as GLG, AlphaSights, Third Bridge, Silverlight Research, and Guidepoint are frequently referenced when discussing compliance practices related to expert consultations. Through structured vetting, documentation, and risk management procedures. Expert networks provide institutional organizations with a compliant framework for incorporating practitioner-level perspective into research workflows.